And I think we have done it. I think we're back. Should we give everyone a second to share and join in?
Yeah, man. Let's give everybody a second to share. We are back, the Just Boxing Podcast.
Yes, checking in from home. This is not Sweet Science Boxing and MMA in Hawthorne, California, although I am still in Hawthorne.
And I'm way out in Apple Valley, California,
Apple
in my
Valley.
little home studio in my corner of my bedroom.
I can see. I see all the posters and everything that you got there. What is that behind you? Chavez Jr.? You got Chavez Jr.
Yeah, I
right
got
there?
a
Triple G?
Chavez Jr., got a Wilder Fury poster up there, some Fleto Reyes, got the Golovkin and Rubio,
Golovkin,
Triple
Rubio?
G.
Okay.
Yeah, so a little bit of everything.
That's pretty good, bro. Behind me, I have a nice wall. You know, it's nice and plain. I can christen this with something. I can reach out and touch it. A
There you
couple
go.
posters or something like that put up in here. I'm actually live from what room do you think I'm in? If you had to guess.
Probably your daughter's room.
You think I'm in my daughter's room? Nah,
Yeah,
she's got like fancy walls. They're all striped pink with purple bubbles and stripes and all kinds of stuff. We went to town in that room. This
nice.
is my laundry room.
So, like if I hook up my laptop, can I see people like chatting in on?
Yeah, of course,
Can
bro.
can they chime in?
Yeah, if you go on Facebook right now and pull up the live stream, you'll see people chatting in just like if you were watching an episode.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna go ahead and go on my Facebook so I can interact with our lovely fans.
Just keep the volume down.
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah, otherwise we'll get into that nasty feedback loop. I'm gonna have to do a proper introduction here in a second.
Exactly, man.
You
Go ahead
know?
and bring us back in.
You want me to do it right now?
Yeah, bring us back in, man.
Okay. Welcome back to Just Boxing Live. I am your host, Sean Fitzgerald, and with me today via Zoom meeting is lead writer for Supreme Boxing, host of the Sweet Science Session, which you can find on Instagram Live at Supreme Boxing, and of course, co-host of Just Boxing Live, my very good friend, Anthony Stacks Saldana. What's up, Stacks?
Glad to be back. Glad to be back, man. Talking boxing with my partner in crime, Sean Fitzgerald. It's been a minute, man. Been locked down, so we really haven't got to discuss boxing. So glad to have you back, man.
It's been
Glad to be back, I should say.
a solid minute. I'm going to say a good 4 to 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks since we have done an episode of Just Boxing Live.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely been a minute here.
And you have been up to quite a bit since that time. I notice that, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast here, the Sweet Science Session with Stacks you can find on Instagram Live at Supreme Boxing. Tell me about the Sweet Science Session with Stacks. Where did that idea come from? And how did you? How's it been going?
You know what? It's been going really well. So I tried it with you. You know how I started off, man. I called you up and said, hey, maybe we should start like an Instagram Live and interview fighters on Instagram Live. But IG only allows 2 people to connect at one time. So Sean got the boot and the boxer came in, man. That's how it kind of started. Started off with Jesse Vargas.
I was fired right away before my first episode. I was fired, bro.
Yeah, you didn't even make it to the first episode.
I didn't make it. I was fired.
Yeah, but no, it started off with Jesse Vargas and then and Blair Cobbs, and then from there, the one of the co-owners of Supreme Boxing, Hector De La Cruz, also known as Hexar, he kind of enjoyed it, man. He said, "So why don't you get some more fighters? I'll start making you some designs." And we just got the ball rolling. We've been having a lot of different fighters on there. We've had Michael Carbajal on there. We've had Mikey Garcia on there. We've had OJ3, O'Shea Jones III, or Otha Jones III, not O'Shea. O'Shea's his sister, but Otha Jones III. O'Shea's going to be joining us probably this week. So it's been going really well.
And if I'm not mistaken, Michael Carbajal, this is one of the reasons that you actually got into boxing initially. Is that fair to say?
Oh, that's correct, man. Michael Carbajal has always been my favorite fighter. I first started watching boxing, Hagler Hearns, April 15, 1985. But I didn't really get into it until watching, that Carbajal Chiquita Gonzalez fight.
Yeah.
And then, I had followed Michael through his career, 88, when he went to the Olympics, basically getting robbed when he fought the Bulgarian in South Korea. There's a lot of politics that year in boxing. That was the same year that Roy Jones Jr. lost the gold medal, and had always been a fan of him. And then in 2017 was the first year that I actually covered the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, and I was asked to do it as a favor because Nancy had to fly out to Cancun with Maricela, who had a fight that same weekend. So we went up there, and it just so happened that Michael Carbajal was going to be inducted to the Hall of Fame that year. So I got to meet him, met his wife, and we've been in contact ever since, and have became friends. And had him on, and he just talked a lot about boxing, about growing up out here in the United States, and just the pressure he felt being a Mexican American fighter when he went up against Chiquita Gonzalez, who of course at that time was the WBC champion when he took him on from Mexico. And there was a lot of Mexican fans that didn't like Carbajal. They were calling him Chicano, and at that time, even though us as Mexican Americans were known as Chicanos, at that time it was just kind of like a slur towards us. It's like we weren't real Mexicans because we were born in the United States. But he talked about, being a pioneer and opening up the doors for some of these fighters in the lighter weight classes, as him and Chiquita Gonzalez were the first fighters to actually make $1 million, for fighters in the lighter weight. They had two different announcers there. They had Jimmy Leonard Jr. there. They had Michael Buffer there. And it was at the Hilton in Las Vegas for a unification bout. And talked about getting dropped. He got dropped twice in that fight. He got dropped in the second, then got dropped again in the fifth round, and came back to stop Chiquita on the seventh. So, we got into some really good discussions, man, and it was fun, man.
Real quick, I want to give a couple shout outs to some people who jumped on the chat here. Roshan Jones, he said, "Good stuff, guys. Thank you very much. This is our first attempt via Zoom meeting. But you guys let me know what you think."
Jones is actually Otha's brother, and Otha was one of our guests as well, man.
Yeah, a guest on the Sweet Science session with Stacks, which we were just talking about. And, of course, shout out, of course, to Tommy Rush Jr. with Pound for Pound, because he has shared us out to over 10 spots. Thank you.
Man,
I appreciate
thank you so
brother.
much for sharing us out right now.
Tommy, you guys have an episode coming up. Tell me the date, and I'll plug it. I forgot what the date is, but I know it's coming up here quick. So give me the date, and I'll make sure to plug it on here. And, of course, your co-host, Aaron, has joined us as well. So shout out to Aaron. Appreciate all you guys. We're doing our first attempt here of a live broadcast. I'm from my home, Stacks from his home in Apple Valley, which if you guys follow Stacks on Twitter, you know his address. Because since we were on the topic of the Sweet Science session with Stacks, now, you and I, we're friends, right? So I know that
Correct.
you have had some instances in the past of run-ins with professional fighters.
I have.
And some of that is behind the scenes stuff. I won't get into the specifics or the details of that one. Now, the reason I'm bringing up Jamel Herring is because this was a little bit different. It was actually a little bit more public, where you and Jamel had engaged kind of in some back and forth on Twitter and on Instagram as the result of an episode of Sweet Science Session with Stacks. And I don't want to reopen that wound, because I know from following it that you guys have hashed it out. You guys have worked it out, and that everything's good between you. But I do want to sort of get your impression of how this was different from previous experience you've had with professional boxers because of its public nature. And did you learn anything from that experience, or is there anything that you would do differently?
Yeah, I think there is. I think I articulate my words a little bit better. The way, and I'll just go ahead and talk about the way everything went down. So, one of the fighters that I had on here are actually on the Sweet Science session on the Supreme Boxing IG was Gabriel Flores Jr., who's an up and coming prospect who fights at super featherweight. He can fight at lightweight. His last 4 fights have been at catch weights. And his dad jumped on, and we were talking a little bit about where he's at in his career and what we've seen. And one thing I talked about is him actually dropping down to 130 and maybe winning a title. At 130 right now, you have title holders like Miguel Burchelt down there. You have Leo Santa Cruz down there. You have Jojo Diaz down there, and you have Jamel Herring down there. So I basically said that he would be able to go in there and handle Jamel quite easily.
That's not exactly the term that you use, though.
That's not exactly the terms that I used. I basically said, that he mopped the floor with Jamel Herring.
Okay.
Jamel didn't take lightly to what I had to say. He started using some derogatory remarks towards me on social media. He went to Twitter and did the same thing. Basically, I told him, look, man, you gotta do what you gotta do. If you want to handle your business, here's my address. Here's where you can find me. I'll take an ass whoop, and I'm still gonna have the same feelings. Basically, he went on to a show, The Fighter's Voice, up in Fresno. He made a public apology. I made a public apology as well. Um, as media, are we supposed to be biased? Of course we are. But when it comes to opinions on the way fights go, I think that everybody does it. I think in all sports as well. On the NFL, every Sunday you have these commentators that add up their scores to who gets certain games right. And it's not because they like certain teams or because they favor certain teams. It's something they do. They say, okay, the Raiders are going to beat the Chargers, the Niners are going to beat the Seahawks, whatever the games may be. At this moment, I still feel that Gabriel Flores beats Jamel Herring, but I think it was the way I articulated myself and the way I came off and saying he would get beat, which kind of rubbed Jamel the wrong way. And I understand it. And I apologized to him. I said, look, I could have said it different. He apologized as well for what was said on social media. And we pretty much squashed it. But like I said, I did apologize to Jamel Herring. And this isn't the first time that I've had run-ins with fighters, but this is the first time it actually went public this way.
Yeah, this was very public, and for that reason, I imagine different. When did you first become aware that he was privy to the comments that you had made on the Sweet Science session? And what was your immediate reaction? Like, what was your gut reaction to seeing that?
So I first became privy because he actually tagged me in his story. And once he tagged me in his story, then I knew what was going on. I knew he had seen it. The way it started off is somebody had put a clip up, and apparently they tagged him in the clip. And then once he seen the clip, then he started in on me on his IG live. And then he started tagging me in his Twitter account and different Twitter stories, and it went from there, you know. But the initial feeling I would say was like, I was a little bit upset at myself, man, because I did it through Supreme Boxing. So, and Supreme Boxing isn't it's bigger than me, right? If it would have been personal, if it would have just been me on my own Facebook, it would have been different. But it was kind of like, I should have been a little bit smarter. You know, I should have been a little bit more had a little bit better choice of words going through a public outlet like that. So, you know, I learned my lesson.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to Eddie Rosario, who's been a guest on this show, Mr. Active Body Recovery. Shout out, Eddie. Thank you very much for your comment. Tommy Rush said, good old-fashioned beef and squashed it, and he loves it. Well, I will say that I think that I can understand both perspectives personally. I think I get what you're talking about when you say your word selection could have been different. I get why he might have been frustrated with hearing that, but I also understand that you are entitled to your opinion, and one of the things that we do regularly on this show is sort of express our opinions about who we think will win. The challenge is making it not personal, is my perspective on it. My sort of mission, I would say, as I go through and express my opinion, is always to make sure that I'm not taking it personally. It's always just based off of information or performances that I've gathered. But I think it's hard to be critical of someone and have them not take that personally as well. But at the same time, I can understand the perspective that there's a difference between saying I think someone's going to win and saying, hey, you know, not that you said this, but hey, I think homeboy get his ass kicked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I said. You know, so. But you know, I mean, it's a learning experience. You just have to learn and you have to move on. You know, and it's sometimes the emotions get the best of you.
Of course.
I was on the line with Gabriel Flores Senior, and he's pretty. I'm trying to find the right words now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's pretty.
This is just boxing live, man.
Now, you know what? He's pretty straightforward when it comes to his interviews. He doesn't really hold anything back, and I kind of let my emotions get the best of me and ran with it. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
we were both talking, we were both chopping it up, and he got pretty pumped up, and I got pretty pumped up, and it is what it is. You know, but
I understand.
Here's the thing. It was never any type of disrespect to Jamel, or at least I didn't feel it was. I told him afterwards if he felt he was disrespected in any way, I apologized to him. But the thing is I never bashed him as a person. I understand that he's a United States veteran from the Marine Corps. I work with the veterans. I've worked with veterans, disabled aging veterans for over 10 years. So I respect that. I respect him as a person. I respect him for a boxer, as a boxer, and for getting in that ring and risking his life daily. You know, every time he gets into that ring. So the attack wasn't on Jamel personally. It was just, hey, I don't think he wants to fight. You know, and there it is. There.
Yeah. Tommy Rush Jr. says, I can respect the retrospect and learn from it. Still stand by your opinion. Also respect understanding the business representation. Also, brother. Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it.
I'm still trying to log into my computer.
Man, you're taking some time there. Benny Castrohone, shout out to Benny. Benny says, bring back boxing. I think we all agree with you. But in the absence of boxing, I know, Stacks, that you've been doing a fair amount of rewatch. I can see from social media posts that as outlets like Showtime and ESPN have been posting some of their greatest hits, you've been going back and checking out some of these classics. Is that correct?
No, I have, man. You know, I've been watching a lot of boxing lately. I'm actually on the phone now because they're giving me codes to go to my email. A lot of boxing. Been watching a lot of older fights as well, not just what ESPN has been showing, but fights that to me, you know, were under the radar all action fights. Now everybody knows about Gotti Ward. Everybody knows the Castillo Corrales fights, but there's a lot of older fights. That I've been watching as well lately, you know, that don't get put out there as much. Some of the fights I watched were Yaki Lopez, right? I watched the Yaki Lopez fight in his second fight. It was a rematch fight against Saad Mohammed. That's probably one of the greatest action fights that I've seen. I mean, it's I want to say it's either a middleweight or a super middleweight fight. And it was just an all-out war. And Yaki Lopez was actually winning that whole fight until the 14th round when Saad Mohammed came back and knocked him out. Great fight. Went back and watched Aaron Pryor and Aguayo. Not that water bottle fight, the other water bottle, the one I mixed fight. You know, so that was a good fight as well.
Referring to, of course, Panama Lewis.
Panama Lewis. Give me that other water bottle.
Corner commentary, the one that I mixed. Which he explained, if you've ever watched the documentary, Panama Lewis explains that he's referring to a water bottle that contains a 50-50 mix of, what is it, like seltzer water and regular water.
I doubt that. They said it was something that enhanced the breathing in a Pryor's lung.
That was his excuse, though. That was his excuse, that it was a 50-50 mix of basically sparkling water and regular water. It helps with the... You're not buying it, I think.
No, yeah, no. That New York seltzer.
Oh man.
No, definitely not buying it. You know, went back and watched a few of the Ali fights, the Ali Frazier, you know, and
which one?
I actually watched all three, and the first one, you know, watched the Thriller Manila, and no, actually that was was it the Rumble in the Jungle? The Rumble in the Jungle, right? The
Rumble in the Jungle was George Foreman.
So it was the Thriller Manila.
But that wasn't the first one. They didn't fight in Manila the first time, I don't think.
The Frazier fight. The first Frazier fight is the one I'm watching. And, you know, I see a lot of, I'm telling you, man, I see a lot of Muhammad Ali and Tyson Fury. You know, I really do. You know, that backwards slap type jab.
You're about to catch some heat, man. We're about to drop some viewers right now.
No, I don't think we'll drop.
Oh, the live feed is dropping. I see it. No, I'm just.
Yeah, we went. Yeah.
Oh man, way to alienate people.
Viewers, man.
Way to alienate people. No, real quick before we get into that, let me give a shout out to Aaron because I did tell him I would plug this upcoming episode of the Standing 8 podcast, episode 50. That's Sunday, 5/17 at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can catch that live on the Standing 8 podcast Facebook page. They will
5
be.
p.m. Eastern. Correction, 5 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, my bad. 5 p.m. Eastern. Oh, my bad. And live on their Facebook page, they will be with New Jersey prospect Keith Colin and Ironbound Boxing founder Mike Stedman. So you guys can tune into that on the Standing 8 podcast. So let me get back to this topic of Tyson Fury and Muhammad Ali. So something I've observed, and I've made this mistake a number of times. There are certain athletes. Mike Tyson is one. Muhammad Ali is one. Michael Jordan. Bruce Lee. There's like a number of people who kind of transcend their place in athletics or within whatever their space of expertise is. And when I say that, I mean they're really representation. They're people's hero, right?
Yeah.
And the challenge is that when you're talking about a fighter, there's a certain level of criticism that can be accepted, I think, by the general population. But when you're talking about people's hero, that sort of barrier goes away. There's virtually no amount of criticism that can be that can be performed at once. So I think that you'll be met with resistance, even though there are people who will look at it and go, clearly there is some overlap in their skill set. Just the actual comparison, the fact that you say you see some, I imagine that that's met with resistance because you're talking about people's hero. Do you feel like that's an unpopular opinion?
No, you know what? I think you're right. But here's the thing: is I'm not talking about what Ali did in his personal life and what his choices that he made outside of boxing were. Changing his last name, not going to Vietnam, and all these other things. It doesn't have anything to do with that. I'm just talking about stylistically in the ring, and people have to, to step back and understand that. I'm not trying to criticize their hero or talk bad about Ali. If that's who you consider your hero. The thing is I'm looking at that stylistically of how they match up, and what I see in Fury and what I've seen in Ali. And I'm not saying that he's as good as Ali or he ever will be. Will he be better than Ali? I don't know. But the thing is this is what I see. When you look at somebody maybe like David Tua, people see glimpses of Tyson in him, the way he'd come in with his black shorts and the black, the black shoes, and he fought low and he went to the body and he kind of resembled the way Tyson fought, and it's not to knock Tyson or to compare Tua to Tyson, but you see the same type of fighting styles in them, and that's all it is. It's just saying that, look, when I watch it and I sit back and I watch Fury fight, I see a lot of Ali and Fury.
Well, there's a couple directions that we can take this, but since you mentioned Mike Tyson, I'm sure that you've seen over social media these past few days the clip of Mike Tyson, a 53-year-old Mike Tyson, recently hitting mitts and throwing a 6-punch combination or so, which was shared. This was followed by a comment, which I have here from Mike Tyson. Is a quote. He said, "I want to go to the gym and get in shape to be able to box 3 or 4 round exhibitions for some charities." That was the quote from Mike Tyson. I've seen a lot of people criticize the idea of a comeback from Mike Tyson at the age of 53, even for this type of comeback, an exhibition type comeback. But my question is, why not Mike? Because if you look at Chavez and Arce, they recently fought twice. Obviously, Floyd has done exhibitions with tension. Mike even used to do exhibitions. He did an exhibition tour with Corey Sanders at some point in time, after he had retired. So why not Mike Tyson doing exhibitions for charity?
No, he could. I mean, he could come back. As far as actually trying to make a comeback, no, I don't think so.
When you mean like a professional comeback where he's going to be fighting, yeah. Okay.
But an exhibition, why not? Why not throw on some headgear and sit there and raise money for charity? I mean, I don't see him getting hurt.
Do you think?
I think it would be good. People it's a big name. He's a big name.
Do you think most people read the headline and think that are thinking more along the lines of like, hey, professional comeback, like challenge for world titles type comeback? Or is it?
That's the thing. He's not. He won't ever do that. What we've seen was a 15 or 20-second clip of him hitting some pads. You can take anybody and put a clip together and make them look good. But it's Tyson's name. It's Tyson. What is Tyson known for? I know for me, for instance, right? when I think of Mike Tyson, I don't really think of the biting of the ear. I don't think of his loss to Buster Douglas. That's not the first thing that comes to my mind. Of course, that's all a big part of his career. But the only thing I remember of Tyson, really, the first thing that comes to my mind is all those wasted pay-per-view dollars I spent for these first round knockouts. That's Tyson. The video game, Mike Tyson's Punch Out. You get hit with one punch, you're done. The pay-per-views, knocking people out in the first round, right? That's how I see Tyson. So when I see Tyson sitting there and hitting the bag, the first thing I thought is, God damn, Tyson still has it in him. He's 53 years old, and I'd be damned if I want to get hit by Mike Tyson the way he just hit those bags, right? But then after you sit back and you really take a big perspective look at it, look, dude, he's just hitting the bags for 20 seconds. It's just a little clip. How good would he really do against a heavyweight, a top heavyweight right now? Probably not very good. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, exhibition, of course. Let him get in there. Let him fight some exhibitions. Let him raise some money for charity. Let him do what he's gonna do because he's still Mike Tyson. But as far as making that comeback, nah. But I can understand why people would say, "Oh man, look at him," because that's what most people remember him by is all those quick knockouts. It's until you really start taking a look at his career and defining it and breaking it down, you realize, look, he got beat by some of the best heavyweights. He got beat by Holyfield. He got beat by Lewis. He wasn't probably mentally in his right state of mind when he got beat by Buster Douglas because of everything that was going on in his personal life, So.
Yeah, I've had a few instances, one in particular where I talked about or reflected on the career of Mike Tyson and as compared to the career of some other top heavyweights. And I will say that obviously that was met with resistance, I think for the reason that I talked about before, but also because at the end of the day, I realize now in reflection that you can look at anyone's resume and really criticize or nitpick and go, the point is the guy was remarkable. He was great to watch in terms of boxing, right? I don't know Mike Tyson personally, but as a boxer, he did some tremendous things. He was highly entertaining. He made tons of money in the sport of boxing, a lot of entertainment value for fans. I get why people like it. And so if I had to do it over, I would look back and say, you could nitpick his resume, but then I feel like you could do that with Sugar Ray Robinson. You could do it with Muhammad. You could do it with anybody. If you really want to go through there with a fine-tooth comb and start making up names of people he didn't fight or people he did fight and lost to at points that he shouldn't have and all this different stuff. You see people do it with any top fighter, Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, and any top fighter.
No, exactly, man. But like I said, it's what we remember him by.
Yeah.
And, the first thing that comes to my mind is, like I said, it's always going to be the knockouts. Well,
Yeah.
Before his defeats, before the biting of the ear, before just everything, it's just Tyson was a bad man. As a kid growing up and watching him, it's just like, even have Will Smith rapping about him. I think I could beat Mike Tyson.
I say more power to him, man, for the exhibition. If Julio Cesar Chavez and Arce can get in the ring and make some money, then why not Mike Tyson?
Right. Exactly.
Right? Why not? Why not? We watched Julio Cesar Chavez do it twice in the last few months even. So
yeah.
So no big deal. Exactly. So talking about other marquee heavyweights, there's been some conversation or things publicly put on social media around the idea of Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua participating in a unification bout for the undisputed heavyweight champion sometime later this year, possibly in Saudi Arabia. Of course, there are tremendous hurdles to this, given that both have contracted opponents. Kubrat Pulev, obviously, is Joshua's contracted opponent, and a rematch with Deontay Wilder would be Tyson Fury's contracted opponent. But presumably, they could both accept step-aside money and proceed with a heavyweight title unification bout. Would you prefer to see that than see these other two fights?
Yeah, honestly, I would. I would like to see Fury and Joshua unify the titles. Saudi Arabia, I'm not real big on Saudi Arabia, and
I know your feelings on Saudi Arabia. It's all you don't have to go into detail.
Yeah, but I think those are the two best fighters in the world right now. I'm not gonna say that Joshua's first fight with Reese was a fluke, but I believe that him and Fury are the two best fighters in the world. So I think it would be a good fight. I don't think Joshua would be able to use that same defensive mechanism as he used against Reese in the second fight to beat Fury, because I don't think Fury would chase him. I think he'd actually have to engage with Fury and sit there and box. And I think Fury's a better technical fighter than Joshua is. I think he'd win on the scorecards.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to world champion Paul Benke. Thanks, champ, for giving us a couple likes here on the Facebook page. You guys make sure to follow
World
Paul. Box
champion
fam.
Paul Benke just had his 30th anniversary of winning the WBC super bantamweight title.
Yes, he did.
30 years ago, man. Congratulations on that feat for 30 years ago, Paul.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in.
Shout out to Paul Benke and Box Fam. You guys are always so I'm so appreciative for all the support that you guys show me and Stacks as well.
That's right.
So back to it. So you actually think that you would prefer to see a heavyweight title unification bout, and you believe that Tyson Fury would take away that title?
Correct. I do.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. I think Fury beats him, man. I think Fury is. I think they can really call him the lineal champion. He's the lineal champion, and he'll have all the belts. He'll just not just only be the lineal, but he'll be the undisputed lineal.
Undisputed lineal. Paul Benke said Loma versus Lopez. That's going to be a good fight. I don't disagree. This is a topic I've heard you talk about, Stacks, on the Sweet Science session, but one of the things I believe I had read, this was some weeks ago, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that Teofimo Lopez seemed not interested in participating in a bout with Lomachenko without fans in attendance. And I know that you've brought this up with a number of fighters on the Sweet Science session with Stacks. What's the feedback that you're getting on fighting fights with nobody in attendance or without fans? Obviously, there would be some people like officials, things of that nature, still need paramedics, but without fans.
The feedback is that they want to get in there and fight. They want to do what's best for the fans. They want to get in there and they want to have fights, but they really don't know how it's going to go, man. Jesse Vargas, for instance, said he believes it's going to feel a lot like a sparring session, without having those fans. Then you have other fighters that are prospects that haven't had that opportunity to fight in front of so many fans, because as you know, even if they're on the undercards to big fights, even if they've been on the undercards of the Furies or the Canelos or whatever big main events they've been part of the undercard on, you know just as well as I do that stadium stays 90% empty until the main event or the co-main event, depending on what the co-main event is. So they're used to fighting without any fans in those arenas. So to them, it really doesn't make a difference. They just want to get in there to fight, like Otha Jones, for instance. One thing, we had talked about is him being on the undercards of some of the fights and the fans don't show up. He said where the fans did show up on the undercards was when he fought in England. He had fought on a card in England for Matchroom, and he said the stadium was it was alive from the opening bell, from the very first fight. The stadium was packed, so I guess it's a little different over there in England than it is here in the United States. But I think the only people it would really affect are the main eventers, the people that are headlining the fights that are used to fighting in front of the large crowds. But as far as money-wise goes, I mean, of course, you're not going to have that extra money from the live gate. But, one thing I talked about was the WWE. They had WrestleMania about a month ago. And that was the most watched WrestleMania in the history of WrestleMania, which goes back over 30 years, and it was packed, and the not packed, but the pay-per-views were just, the numbers were enormous for that because they did it at a studio in Florida, in Orlando, at their studios in Orlando, Florida, without any fans. And people watched it because people just want to see sports. So I believe if they put together a good card, even though they didn't have fans and it was a pay-per-view card, there'd be a lot of people buying that pay-per-view, a lot of people wanting to watch it, So the money could be made through advertising, through marketing, through commercials and whatnot. So I don't think they should really expect a pay cut. Maybe a little bit, but like I said, the only thing missing would be the gate money, because I think they could make that money up through pay-per-view and in other ways, because of so many people wanting just to watch the sport of boxing. A lot of people are missing the sport of boxing, including myself, and I'm sure you are. So I know if there was a fight and they were to throw it on a pay-per-view, I'd be one to buy.
I miss the sport of boxing enough that I've set up a Zoom session so that we could discuss it here live on on Just Boxing Live.
Right.
No, absolutely, I miss the sport of boxing, and I think people feel that in different ways. And so I want to take a second to talk about a topic through Just Boxing Foundation. And I posted something on Instagram yesterday. You can find the Instagram post on at Just Boxing Live. But essentially, the topic is this. It's about missing boxing, and it's about the fact that we as fans, as much as we suffer, the fighters suffer even more. And so one of the things that we are doing now or have announced yesterday at Just Boxing Foundation is a protection relief grant, pandemic protection and relief grant for fighters. And I want to talk about quickly the eligibility for that grant because I want to get it out there so that people apply for the grant. The application deadline is May 15th. If you are a professional boxer who competed or were scheduled to compete, I should say, at an event in Los Angeles County, of which there are a number in the months of March, April, or May, then you may be eligible for this grant. And I encourage you to go to our website, justboxing.org, check out the guidelines, check out the application, and follow the submission process because we may be able to assist. We will review every application that comes in by the deadline, May 15th, and we'll make sure to prioritize based on the fighter's need and also based on the guidelines that are specified on the website. So I want to put that out there and make sure that everybody is aware of that. Share that out. If you know someone who was scheduled to fight in Los Angeles, then please have them go to justboxing.org and check out the grant application process.
Exactly. Fighters, if you're out there, please don't be ashamed if you need help right now, which a lot of people do. A lot of people are struggling because of coronavirus and because of COVID-19. A lot of people aren't at work. You guys that are professional fighters, that's your job. That's what you guys are doing. If you guys had fights, as you said, that were scheduled between March and now, and you didn't get a chance to fight and it was here in LA County, please go to the justboxing.org website and apply for that grant. Not everybody will receive that grant, but the team will review it depending on your needs, and we will do what we can for you guys. So please go to the justboxing.org Foundation website and apply for that grant if you're a boxer who got your fight canceled or maybe in need of help or money.
Couple things. I have received a few questions on this that I just want to clear up. So question, can you nominate other fighters? The answer is yes. So if you want to nominate a fighter who you know meets the criteria and they are eligible, you can nominate a fighter using the same application process. So you go to justboxing.org. There's a section on the application for nominations if you want to nominate a boxer, as I know some people are hesitant to apply or ask for help directly. So if you can help through the nomination process, please do that as well. The other question I've received is where can we donate? And thank you very much for that question. I appreciate it. If you want to help and donate to Just Boxing Foundation, and we will obviously be using the donations from now until May 15th for the purposes of this grant, you can also donate from justboxing.org. So go to our website. It's on the home page, actually on every page in the header on the right-hand side. You can hit the donate button, and that's where you can do that. And thanks to you. To those of you who have actually already done so based on the post yesterday, I appreciate it.
That's right.
That's it for me. What do you got, Stacks?
I miss boxing, man. I miss being in the studio in Hawthorne. I miss going to fights. I miss sitting ringside. I think one thing that you guys as fans need to do is to make sure you guys are reaching out to friends. Make sure you guys are reaching out to family. Reach out to myself, reach out to Sean if you guys are fans of the show. If you guys ever need to talk or need to get something off your chest, man, put it out there. Don't hold it in. I think one thing that is hitting a lot of people that isn't really being discussed during this lockdown is the mental health situation of people. People go stir crazy. People are going nuts. Even people that are in their right minds that have never fought depression, that have never had those type of feelings before are starting to feel a certain way because of this virus and because of not being able to go out, not being able to hang around with their friends and hang around with their family. Make sure that you guys get that off your chest, that you talk to somebody, that you don't bottle up all these emotions and you let it get the best of you. It's a tough situation for everybody, myself, included. I work in a healthcare facility. I go to work and I come back home every day. I've done that for the last 6 weeks. I don't go out. I don't even go to the store. And it takes a toll on you. Yesterday I was out. I did yard work for 6 or 7 hours. I was just out there with the hoe, hoeing weeds and hoeing the dirt and cleaning up my yard. And believe it or not, just being out there was therapeutic for me. That was a way just to have my release. I get on the treadmill, I jog, I do little things, but everybody handles their release with their emotions a certain way. So if you need to talk to somebody, make sure you're talking to your friends, make sure you're talking to your family. Use Zoom, FaceTime, you know, take a walk around the block, put your mask on and take a walk around the block. Do whatever you feel you need to make sure that you're not holding in any type of emotions that will allow you to hurt yourself or to hurt somebody else. So because like I said, everybody handles it different, and you guys got to do what you got to do to take care of your own safety, your own well-being, as well as the safety and the well-being of others at the same time.
Thanks very much, Stacks, for the positive message. I appreciate you getting on Zoom today so that we can do another episode, a remote episode, as it were, of Just Boxing Live. This is something that is a form of therapy for me personally, getting together with you and talking boxing, getting to interact with the people on the chat. So Chris Dinkins says, hope everyone is safe out here, and we hope the same. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it.
Hopefully next week we can get some guests. I know me and you'll be talking a lot more this week now that I got this little Zoom thing down.
Now that you figured it out?
It only took me a week to figure it out, but hey, it is what it is. But no, I think it'll be easier to get some guests on here. If you guys want to see guests, man, reach out to Sean or I. Let us know who you want us to try to get on the show. If we can get them, we can. So we're gonna be trying to do more of this until they ease up on some of the release. The stay-at-home orders out here in California. So just be safe. Continue to tune in. Continue to do what you got to do to keep your family safe. But be on the lookout for Sean and I, because we are back, even though we are doing it through Zoom. The Just Boxing podcast is back. This is our first session remotely, so we're working through the little kinks, but we will get the hang of it.
That's right. Hopefully the video and audio quality was up to Just Boxing Live standards. You guys let me know how it went for you. And if you are interested in being on the show, I have a space for you right around, where is it? Right about here. There will be another box for you, and we can put you right in there between me and Stack. So let me know. You can find us through the website, or you can reach out to us on Facebook at Just Boxing Live or Instagram at Just Boxing Live. And again, the website, justboxing.org. Anything else you want to plug, Stacks?
You can catch me weekly. I really don't have any set schedules. It's just kind of whenever the boxers have schedule on IG Live. It's always going to be at 6 p.m. though, with certain boxers, with the sweet science session with Stacks on Supreme Boxing IG Live. Catch us on there, man. I've had different fighters, like I said at the beginning of the show. I've had Michael Carbajal. I've had Gabriel Flores. I have Mikey Garcia. I've had Jesse Vargas. I had Blair Cobbs. I had Otha Jones III. Next week, I'm planning on trying to get Jojo Diaz in there. He's talking about an upcoming fight with Abner Mares, maybe in the works. So I want to get Jojo on board. So just be on the lookout for me on Supreme Boxing IG. Usually during the week, sometimes I don't really do the weekends, but usually during the week at 6 p.m. you can catch me live on Supreme Boxing. Besides that, that's it. I think just waiting on announcements for the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. It doesn't look real good for this year, but see what happens, man. I should be having an announcement for that within the next couple of weeks or so, but it's not looking too good right now.
And that's understandable given the circumstances. We've seen a lot of things that are postponed or delayed, but I'm sure they will be back in full effect once we're able to get through this. I want to make sure that I give a shout out to Paco Perez, who jumped on the chat. Top fan, Paco. Thank you so much for all of your support of the show and all of your encouraging words. I appreciate it. I hope that the video and audio sounds as good as you expect. Let me know, Paco. Send me a message. I appreciate you guys. But, Stacks looks like he's got one more thing.
Before I go,
yes.
Last night there was a very, very bad accident in Carson, California, right? And one of the people involved was a world-class cut man named John Michael. A lot of you guys have him as friends on Facebook. He's a cut man that's been around everywhere. He's a cut man for the MMA. He's a cut man for several boxers. He was involved in a very bad car accident. He's in critical condition right now. A pedestrian was involved. There was a fatality. It was a 2 or 3 car accident in Carson where a pedestrian was killed. So my prayers are going out to the family of that pedestrian that was killed and to the prayers of everybody that was involved in that accident, especially John Michael, who's a well-known cut man in Southern California. So my prayers are for him and, for his family right now, and that, that he just makes a quick recovery after this accident.
Yeah, of course. You caught me off guard with that. Obviously, as you said, most of us are Facebook friends at a minimum with John Michael, and we've seen him at events around here. So that is unfortunate, and all the best to John Michael and his family. In given these tragic circumstances, we hope a speedy, fully healthy recovery for John Michael and for anyone else who may have been injured in that event. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was. I seen it last night on the news about the accident, and then this morning I found out that it was John Michael that was involved in that accident. So I don't know all the details. Just know that he is in the hospital right now. So prayers for a speedy recovery for John.
Thanks, Dax, for bringing it to our attentions. Thanks for sitting with me through Zoom for this episode, brother.
All right, we will definitely be back. Be sure to catch us next Sunday. Correct?
Yeah, I'll do this as many times as you want.
All right,
on
man,
Sunday.
We may do it more often, man. We just may pop up during the week, night one night, and say, "Hey, we're live." So
why not?
Be sure to catch us on Just Boxing, man. Be sure to follow us. Follow the Just Boxing Facebook, the IG. Have you got a Twitter yet?
No, I don't have a Twitter yet, man.
Jesus, man.
But I have a website now. There's a website now. You have to give me some slack. I've been working and I've been gradually getting into these other areas. So I have a Facebook, I have an Instagram, and now a website, and next maybe a Twitter. Although, what am I going to tweet? There's no boxing events going on right now.
I don't know.
I'll
Start
figure
some
it out.
shit between me and Jamal again. I don't care.
I'll see if I can get him on for next week. How about that?
Hey, do what you got to do. Hey, that would be good. Get him on there. Get him on there, man.
I will.
What's he going to do? Jump to the screen and beat me up? Come on, man.
That's true. And one of the things I do, of course, shout out to Richard Ortiz, who had Jamal on his show to clarify.
Shout out to Richard Ortiz, to the Fighter's Voice. He's actually one of the guys that helped squash that whole thing. So, man, shout out to Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I appreciate it because, Stax is a person. Stax is a person of importance to me, of some importance to me, and I'm glad that he's still in his best condition here, aside from the sunburn.
That's right.
All right, guys.
Yeah, that's what happens when you go outside in the backyard and try to pull weeds and you're a white Mexican. You get sunburned.
That's all I got for you guys today. See you next week.
Right. Peace.